He just kicked the child somewhere or hit or pinched them. Hi, welcome to another episode of Criminally Patrol. This is a disgusting practice where often helpless single mothers are taken advantage of. Organized groups are involved in this. It's organized crime, also involving lawyers, often attorneys, and various types of intermediaries. I myself was involved in one of these cases in the early 2000s. There's also the question of whether this practice exists. Certainly it does, but as for its scale, we don't know. Maybe it's because this topic has simply disappeared from the public eye. I invite you to watch the next episode.
Watch special episodes as well as regular episodes without ads on Hero Hero. What? Criminalny Patrol.
Legnica, July 16, 1994. A few years have already passed. July 16 summer. A beautiful summer, warm. Well, despite that, Monika was a year and a half old at the time, and somehow she caught a cold despite the high temperatures, so her grandparents decided to take her to the doctor and got ready to go out. At some point, I found out that Monika's father said he would go with them. The grandparents were very surprised because they didn't expect their son-in-law to accompany them on the way to the hospital. Why didn't the grandparents, Robert's in-laws, expect him to go with them? Because, as they called him, Robert was what you might call a bluebird. What does that mean? It means he didn't do any work. He lived, as he said, off of suckers. At that time, the game called Three Cards or Three Cups was popular. Back then, every marketplace, even places like Krupovki and Zakopane, were places where people played three cards. I'm sure many of you know how it works. There are simply either three cards or three cups. In those cups, there's a little ball or a coin, and you just have to guess where the specific card or the ball is. After the person running the game simply mixes or shuffles them. Well, for some time now, for several years or maybe a dozen, this game has been considered a cheating game. It wasn't like that before. It used to be considered a gambling game, until people realized how the whole thing works. And it works in such a way that the organizers are simply a group of a dozen or sometimes even several dozen people. They stand around waiting for a sucker who at first just watches but sees that they are winning, and often it's big amounts, so the sucker joins the game, at first also wins, and then of course loses and in the end gets cleaned out of all his money. Robert took part in these games. That was his only occupation, almost the only one, because he also traded gold. Gold is very popular even today, so people were eager to buy it, and he acted as a middleman in these kinds of transactions. Robert was just over 20 years old at that time. He met Magda, and Magda was 2 years younger. Unfortunately for her, Magda simply fell in love with him, and he, being a parasite, just thought, I don't have my own home, I don't have a bank account, I don't have money, I live off other people, so I'll just have a home where I can live. And that's what happened. He just moved in with his in-laws. Magda, in love, was running around him, and he lived like a king. Magda's parents didn't really like it. After all, they saw that he wasn't doing anything and wasn't taking any job. But what could they do? They saw that their daughter was happy, so they just let it go and kept Robert at home. At some point, pretty quickly, Magda got pregnant. She was happy that she was going to have a child, but Robert himself said that he wasn't fit to be a father, that the child was an obstacle. He was persuading Magda to have an abortion, but Magda didn't want to agree. A baby girl was born, and she named her Monika. Robert himself wasn't interested in the child at all. He never changed her, didn't go for walks, didn't feed her. He was always distant. He said it was completely unnecessary, and he calculated how much it would cost to raise such a child even for half a year. He went to Italy, supposedly started some kind of job there, but since he actually had to work, it just wasn't something for him. He came back to Poland and started complaining again about the child, even calling it a brat, even questioning whether he was the father. He was urging Magda to somehow deal with it. Well, I don't know if he meant giving the child away to someone. Anyway, he wasn't interested in the child at all. That's why, as you remember, I said that the grandparents were surprised that he even wanted to go with the child. But they thought, well, maybe something changed in him, maybe something broke, maybe he understood, matured. So, in some way, they were also happy, but they also noticed it, or rather, they noticed it but didn't take it into account. That he was packing some things into a plastic bag before leaving, and then he just left together with them. Also, that Monika Mawa, she probably sensed that something was wrong. A beautiful blonde, curly blonde hair, blue eyes, she was the beloved granddaughter. Of course, to her grandparents, she would cuddle with them, the same with her mom, but with her dad, well, she kept her distance. Whenever he came close or approached her, she would cover her face and eyes with her hands. She wouldn't let him pick her up. She would start crying right away. I guess she felt that nothing good would come from that man. Magda also noticed a few times that he simply kicked the child somewhere, or hit her, or pinched her just to make her cry. He tormented the child in a way I would call nasty and primitive. That day, they went to the head of the clinic because it was a clinic. And well, it looked like this. Monika's grandmother, the girl's grandmother, she had trouble walking and moved around in a wheelchair herself. They went to the doctor. The doctor said, prescribed something, said it was nothing serious, allowed them to take Monika home, prescribed some medicine, and then they went to the pharmacy. The grandmother rode her wheelchair up to the pharmacy door. Then she managed to stand up and went inside. Grandfather was by the wheelchair, so here by the entrance to the pharmacy. Meanwhile, the father, Robert, was walking with little Monika in the stroller, walking around. At some point, the grandfather sees that he goes to the phone booth, that he's talking to someone on the phone, and then he comes back. Then he stands by the stroller, supposedly reading some announcements. The grandmother came out of the pharmacy. It turned out she was short on money, so the grandfather gave her the money. Well, they were both busy there. And at some point, they see that this Robert with the stroller and with Monika just quickly drives away. Strange behavior because he didn't say anything, but he quickly drives away and disappears into the gate. So they bought the medicine, they come out, look around, but he's nowhere to be found. They go to the gate where he disappeared, but he's not there either. Well, they thought maybe he went back home. But Monika's mom, Magda, wasn't at home at that time either, because earlier Robert had taken her to a friend's place. She came back and asked where Monika was. They told her that their father had taken her somewhere in the stroller. They waited and waited, but they didn't show up. Completely terrified, they called the police in the evening. The police were put on alert. They brought in a tracking dog and started searching. There, the dog picked up a scent leading toward where there were some taxis and buses. So the officers followed the trail and talked to the drivers and taxi drivers, but no one had seen anything. And so the father simply disappeared along with little Monika, and no one knew where the two of them had gone. The police couldn't find them. Of course, the grandparents blamed themselves for letting it happen, for allowing it, but logically speaking, what could they have predicted? You just couldn't have seen this coming. Magda was also going crazy because she said she went to her friend's place, didn't watch the child, and now nobody knows what happened. And she also remembered in Trusbensa when Robert told her that he would take that brat, meaning Monica, one day, sell her, and get dollars for her. Of course, she didn't take it seriously because it's hard to take words like that seriously. The grandparents also realized that probably when Robert was packing something into that plastic bag, he was just packing Monica's clothes as if he was getting ready. Exactly for the fact that both of them would disappear, just disappear. Where to? Well, and so many days have passed, no trace, no clue. And Robert, after a few days, calls Magda, his wife, and says that he simply took their daughter, that they went together to Czechoslovakia, but they had a car accident there, and that Monica died in that accident. Well, Magda said that this absolutely can't be true, that it's definitely not true, that he's lying to her. Then he actually changed his story and said that he sold Monica, that he sold her through certain people. He knew those people from Katowice. They were gold dealers too. He used to work with them. And those gold dealers were intermediaries, and the child was supposed to be sold to Vienna. Magda asked him, begged him to give her some contact to those people so they could go, so they could search. He said he would give her such a contact that they would actually go to Katowice, that they would get the child back, but on the condition that Magda withdraws the whole case from the police and she actually goes to the police. She lied to the police officers, saying that the child had been found, that it was with the father, that it was a planned trip. She didn't know about it, and that's why she reported it, but that everything is fine and the child has been found. She really did arrange to meet with Robert. They went to Katowice, and he was dodging around in Katowice, supposedly trying to find the address, those dealers from Katowice. They walked around there somewhere, but nothing came of it. It turned out that he couldn't remember where those people were or where they lived. And in the end, it all just ended with still not knowing what happened to Monica. It even seems that this Robert was lying the whole time. Because after all, he met his friend at the same time. On the other hand, he said that actually because he already knew that Monica had disappeared. He told him that Monica is alive, that he gave her to be raised by some older people. And that's because he didn't get along with his in-laws. So he told everyone some other nonsense, just a different version. Nobody knew where the truth was. Magda, when she came back from Katowice and realized that the child was gone, went to the police again and said that she had lied, that the child was gone. The police started looking for him again, for Robert, and in fact, he was caught at the last moment because he tried to escape abroad. He went to prison, Robert went to prison. He didn't say anything about what he had done, just with his child, with Monica. They couldn't get anything out of him. He was charged with kidnapping and selling a child, a very serious charge. And it's surprising because after a few months, the court allowed him to leave jail. He just walked out. After a few months, Monica is gone. He has a serious charge, and it's clear that he's lying all the time. As soon as he got out of prison, his temporary detention was lifted. So he made his way to Ukraine. From Ukraine, he got to Austria. And once he was in Austria, he called Magda again. He called Magda, and she was already going crazy out of despair and uncertainty. He stirs her up again with information that Monica is alive, that she exists, that she was sold here in Austria, in Vienna, because he was in Vienna at the time, and that she might be able to get her child back. But the condition is that first Magda has to withdraw the search, say that the child is found, go to the police again, lie again, and second, she has to come to him in Vienna. Magda absolutely didn't want to agree to that. She also realized that he was just lying the whole time. He keeps trying to force the situation so that he won't be searched for, so there won't be a criminal case, and so he can function normally. The case is still ongoing. Here, the prosecutor's office decides to issue an international arrest warrant. They pursue him with this warrant, and the warrant is issued in January 1995. So that's already almost 6-7 months after Monika disappeared. The search is ongoing. Indeed, the police in Vienna arrest him. On September 29, 1995, he is brought here to Poland. As soon as he was brought over, he just pretended to be crazy, banged his head against the wall, screamed, talked nonsense, basically acted like he was insane. He was examined by expert doctors. The doctors determined that he is a person who is simply capable of anything. He is capable of selling his own child, but also other people, and he can even treat his own daughter as an object. Whenever there is an obstacle, whenever there is a problem, he can kill her. And that he could have simply done it. That's what the experts concluded. So, an unpredictable man, an extremely dangerous man. And again, I would say this is another bizarre thing. Despite the fact that this Robert has such charges, Monika is missing, he lies. It's clear all the time that he is a dangerous man. Again, his arrest was lifted and he's being released again. Of course, once he was released, he ran away again and started hiding again. And he did it so effectively that it basically lasted until 2008. So in 1994, Monika disappears in 2008. He himself reports to the court, so 14 years pass. For 14 years, no one knows what happens to the child. As soon as he appeared in court, he said that he really did sell Monika, that at first he said he sold her for $2,000, then he said it was for 2,000 or 20,000 shillings. Then he changed his testimony, his explanation. He said that it wasn't like that he sold her to those intermediaries from Katowice. But the truth is that when he left that place in front of the pharmacy, he went into some other store. When he came out, he realized that Monika was dead. He took the body and buried it in the forest. But he couldn't say or show where all of this happened. Then he said again that he himself sold Monika to some traffickers in Vienna. He even pointed out specific names and places, probably people from his past whom he really used to do business with. The Vienna police started to check all of this, but it turned out that these were all lies, that nothing like that happened, that nobody bought Monika from him. He was just pathologically lying the whole time. Which of these versions was true is unknown, and to be honest, it's still unknown to this day. In the end, Robert got 15 years. 15 years for selling a child. That's the charge he received. There were no other charges like murder, simply because there was no evidence. If he had served those 15 years, then he should have been released 2 years ago, and that's probably what happened. Today he's over 50 years old, probably living somewhere quietly. Everyone was left with this dilemma, with this question. Of course, Magda, who is looking for her daughter, who searched for many years, the grandparents, everyone with the question of what happened to little Monika, who was a year and a half old at the time. Well, we can assume such a version, I would say an optimistic one, that she ended up somewhere with a family, whether in Germany or Austria. Ages living somewhere peacefully. She's 33 years old today, functioning, and doesn't suspect that she was once kidnapped and sold. Well, there are just papers, documents, it wouldn't even cross her mind. And of course, those parents who are now her parents never told her about it. But it could also happen because situations like this do occur, that at some point these parents will tell her the truth, maybe just before they die, and then she'll start searching. Of course, the other version, the tragic one, is that Monika is no longer alive, that she was murdered by her father, buried somewhere, and never had a chance to simply be a girl or an adult woman. That's also possible in all of this. Robert, as I said, got 15 years. He's already out. By the way, in all of this, he didn't just ruin his daughter's life, but he also ruined the lives of his in laws, Magda and his wife. Because for the rest of their lives, they'll never recover. They'll be left with that question, what happened to Monika? Of course, anything can happen. It seemed that this case would be solved in 2020. Kelly, an American woman, found out that she was a child from Eastern Europe, most likely from Poland. It seemed that it was this Monika because she was the same age and she came here to Poland. They did a DNA test, but it turned out that it wasn't Monika. Robert himself never told the truth. He always lied and he never showed any remorse either. He applied for early release twice, first in 2018, then again in 2020. Each time the court told him that it didn't seem obvious. I talked about the fact that this is a kind of practice that used to be, I would say, very well known. There was a lot of it in the past. Today, not so much. What is the scale of child trafficking also in Poland? Because as for other countries, there are countries where, of course, we know that this is almost a norm, that there is simply a lot of it. In Poland, you don't hear about such cases. Thank you for your attention. No, 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 no. No. And thanks to this, it is definitely handled by specialized groups of people, lawyers. No, 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 no. Recognition of paternity. In reality, someone else is the father, and the one who is supposed to adopt this child, or rather buy this child, is just pretending to be the biological father. This is one of those methods. I myself said that I participated in such a case. It was one of the cases in Nowa Huta, where indeed the mother was mentally disabled. Theoretically, one of those Krakow lawyers, who was very famous at the time but had a bad reputation, acted as an intermediary in these adoptions. We found out about it. We went to that apartment. The child was still there, under the care of that mentally disabled mother, and he himself came to the apartment, surprised that we were there. Then he was detained. Theoretically, I would say he left from here then, because those documents that were there, well, the mother agreed to it. The grandmother, that is, the mother of the girl who sold the child, said that she didn't know anything, that she was happy the child stayed. Well, it probably wasn't entirely true, but that's how it was. A mentally disabled mother who wants to get rid of her child, a load of money she could get, and she just decided to do it. It's definitely on a scale. Like I said, we don't know that, but we can see what's happening. And we see that there are ruthless people who can simply make money by trafficking children. That's it. In today's episode, of course, subscribe to our channel, and as always,
Take care. Watch special episodes as well as regular episodes without ads on herohero.co Criminalny Patrol